Welcome back, guys, to The Crazy Life. And today we have Kelly with us, and we're going to go over a few incredible details in life and a little bit of like, what do we fear more? Do we fear God? Do we fear people? What is it? And a really cool experience that Kelly had that had really just pointed him back to God this last few months. It's been fantastic. We may have a part one and part two. You will know by the title of this video if it's part one or if it's just one. But nonetheless, let's kind of go into it. Kelly, let's get us started.
All right. So, man, how long have we known each other? Like what, 10 years now? Seems like 10 years.
Probably.
Or more. We've always been able to talk God and talk spirituality, and we've always had lots of good
In
conversations.
fact, I think we've had probably some of the most deep spiritual conversations. You just had maybe a little bitter taste about organized places.
I think the funniest part is that I know we want to jump into that, but the funniest part is that we would play poker.
Yeah.
And I would I'd get out. I'd be like, I'm done. I'm ready to go to bed, and it's just at our house. And then at 4 a.m, Jake would come into the bedroom and I'd be like, hey, what you been doing? You win? And he's like, oh, no. I quit like 1 o'clock in the morning. But me and Kelly, we've been talking about Jesus and everything that we feel. And it's been super spiritual down there. We've been having a good time. I'm like, that's awesome. That's super great.
I think we've had some of the best church of our life at 3 and 4 in the morning after poker nights.
outside of church, absolutely.
Outside of church, it's been fantastic.
So my life has never been like devoid of spirituality, but this last couple of months has definitely been more focused on God and the direction that I want to take. But that's kind of what brought us to this.
Yeah,
point.
I probably made it sound like Kelly was against. He's never been against. Again, we've had some of the most spiritual conversations. I think a lot of us in life get a little complacent, a little lax on where we're at, and that's everybody in life. And I'm sure people watching this, you're going to be in the same situation. Sometimes we don't think, like, we think if we're just doing good or okay, that it's good enough. Whereas recently, especially these past few months, and everything in the world, you guys have seen how the world is, and we've seen the world change over these past few weeks. Just millions of people turning back to God, which sadly had to take a tragic action to have that happen. But we've seen a huge turning point in the world for just coming back, and I think that's where these past few months you've had an incredible experience. Why don't you tell us about your experience, and then we'll talk about kind of who you fear.
Yeah, I'll give you the briefest version of that experience. So, again, my whole life I've been very much a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's been a good experience. But for the last couple of years, I've kind of wandered away from the organized religion part of it. I always claimed to still believe in the gospel and to want the gospel in my life, but I found it harder and harder to go to church and put on the face for everybody else. So for the last couple of years, my wife continued to go to church, take my kids to church, and I would go occasionally, but I hated being there. I just hated that feeling of like everybody staring at me and judging me when they weren't. I know they weren't now. But because of what I was choosing to do outside of church or some of the decisions I was making, I was actually distancing myself from God when I was claiming to do the opposite. But anyways, so a couple months ago, I was in Arizona, and I had an experience where I partook of a substance, which I'm known to dabble in. It completely legal in Arizona, which is kind of cool. So I wasn't breaking any laws, but I had a customer give me a 50 milligram THC gummy. And man, previous to that, I'd taken like at most like a 5 milligram. And this 50 milligram was a completely different experience. So I took it expecting to go to sleep. So I told my wife that I was taking it. And she's like, are you sure? Like 50 seems like a lot. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to sleep and I'm going to sleep really good. And did not do that. So I took this 50 milligram and it's like midnight. And if anybody's ever experienced a gummy, they hit totally different. I know you haven't. Yeah, I want you to, but I don't want you to. Like you guys would be fun to be around.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
When it hits, it's like the whole world starts spinning, and man, I'm reliving it right now. I'm watching TV on my bed midnight, and I look away from the screen, and all of a sudden the whole room starts spinning. I was like, oh man, it's hitting, it's starting, and it soon became very apparent that this was totally different than it had ever been in the past. Usually, when it hits there, I can close my eyes, I go to sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. My heart started racing. I looked at my watch because I put my watch back on. I always do that when I take gummies, so I know where my heart rate is at. Because if you're not focused on it, you kind of lose track of what's reality, right? So I put my watch on and I looked down at my watch and it's like 147 beats per minute, and that's fast. My heart's going crazy. And so I'm getting a little concerned, and I tap my wife on the shoulder. She's passed out. She'd been asleep for like an hour and a half. And I wake her up, and she's like, "You took the whole thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I took all 50 milligrams. I thought I'd be going to sleep right now." I was like, "I'm kind of concerned though, because my heart won't calm down." And it was about that time that I felt my heart skip a beat the first time. It literally, like, you hear people talk about your heart skipping a beat. I felt it, and I could feel it in my chest, and it skipped a beat, and I was like, "Oh, that's different." And I told my wife, and she's freaking out a little bit. She gets up out of bed. I get up out of bed. The whole room's spinning. I'm dizzy. I can't really focus. I'm starting to get really afraid of what's happening. And I make it out to the couch, and I sit down on the couch, and my mind is having a hard time calming my heart down. Because that's what they tell you when you're high is like, hey, focus on this, realize that you're in reality, everything's going to be okay. Nobody's ever died from weed. You got to constantly remind yourself of this, right? And my mind reminds me, hey, call your friend Brandy and Ryan. They're potheads. They're amazing people, but they are potheads. They know exactly what to do in this situation. So I call Brandy. Keep in mind, it's like 12:30 at this time. Brandy answers, and they're kind of laughing. They had just gotten back from a night out, and they start calming me down, start walking me through this, and then my heart skips a beat again. And I tell them, I was like, hey, I know you guys are just trying to keep me grounded here, but there's something different about this. And it was about that moment that I kind of faded out. And I remember that it's hard to explain, but it's almost like I floated above my body. And I could see the top of my house as if the roof was cut off, and I could see like I was looking down in my living room, but there was no roof. I was just looking down, and I saw my body sitting there, and I saw my wife sitting next to me, and she started shaking me. She started like trying to wake me up. And man, I'm gonna get emotional.
Oh, we've
Right,
had
we
very
do that. We
emotional.
cried here. Safe space to cry.
Okay. So she starts shaking me. She starts sobbing uncontrollably. She calls the paramedics. The paramedics show up. And this all happened within a couple of minutes. Keep that in mind. But in this experience, I watched this whole thing play out. And the paramedics take me. I get to the hospital. They pronounce me dead. And I'm watching all of this from the above view. And it kind of pans back to my wife, and she's sobbing uncontrollably. My kids are still sleeping. It skips forward a little bit, and I see a news article that comes out, and I don't know if it's the next day or a week later. A news article comes out, and it talks about how this dumb kid from Idaho partook of a drug that ended up killing him, and they didn't have any of the information yet. It was just kind of a preliminary article. And man, it's weird reliving this again, because I can see the vision happening again. I watched this news article, and then it's almost like it skips a couple months, and I see the investigation start. And they started this investigation into what drug I took. Like, it's just THC, right? In my mind, it was just THC. Why would they start an investigation? It's completely legal in Arizona. Well, the investigation happens, and then the lawsuits happen. And I watched this guy that gave me this drug, his life gets taken apart. He gets dismantled. He loses his business. He loses his house. He loses everything. And I watch all this play out. And it skips forward, whether it's a couple months or a year, I don't know. And it pans into my mother-in-law. And I see a vision of her sitting in her living room, or in her kitchen at the kitchen table with my wife, talking some crap on me, saying some pretty hurtful things. And I hope she doesn't watch this. She said some pretty hurtful things. And basically the gist of it was, why would he do that to your family? Why would he ruin your guys' life like that? And then it goes to another one of my buddies who is a probation officer here in town. And I know he won't watch this because the dude doesn't do social media at all. But he says some similar things. He says, Kelly's got to be retarded. Like, why would he just take a drug from some random person that he knows nothing about? Like, this dude failed credit and then hands you a drug. Why would you take that drug, right? And he says all these things. I'm watching it happen. And then it probably the biggest jump of all, it goes forward probably a couple of years. And I see my wife, and she's getting remarried. And she is happier than I've ever seen her. And that hurt. My kids are grown up a little bit, and they're happy. And they're taken care of, and they're stable. And you guys know me. I hate being in the same job, and I hate the 9 to 5, and I'm always jumping back and forth, and my wife hates it. She hates the instability. And we've never lacked. We've always had everything that we've ever needed. But in this instance, I watched her be content and stable, and how happy she was in that moment. And that probably hurt the most is watching her. But at the same time, I didn't know this guy. I'd never met him before, but he was providing for my family in a way that I couldn't. And I loved him for that. And pretty soon there was a voice that came to me that said, this is a fulfillment of your patriarchal blessing. And my patriarchal blessing talks about it. I just read it for the first time last week since I got home. And the patriarchal blessing talks about how when you have finished your life on earth, your mission on earth, you will be called home. And I remember thinking, after that voice said, this is your fulfillment of your patriarchal blessing, I remember thinking, what mission did I complete? What did I ever do in life? I feel like I failed. I feel like I don't have a house to give to my family. I don't have anything to leave them. I don't have investments right now. We've kind of blown everything paying off medical debt and all this other debt, and I don't have a lot to give my family. What have I accomplished? What mission did I complete? And I remember feeling very, very low at that point in this vision. And all the guilt and all the shame and all the self-loathing hit me pretty hard. And this whole vision was pretty dark. It was a dark vision. And when I say that everything changed at the second that my Savior came to me in this vision, the dark part of this vision was gone, and there was nothing but light. And I never saw the face of my Savior, but I know it was my Savior. And he gave me a hug, and he said, you didn't fail. He said, you did exactly what we needed you to do. You taught your family about love. You taught your family how to find joy. And there was no pain anymore. There's nothing. There was no self-loathing. There was no anxiety. There was no feeling of inadequacy at all. And I just remember being embraced by that light, by that warmth, by that love, and it was unconditional. There was nothing else that mattered at that moment. And I remember being there for a while, and we chatted for a long time. And it was as if I was sitting with my dad, just having a good conversation about life. And I remember talking to him, and he said, "Hey, I noticed that you haven't been going to church, and you're kind of distancing yourself from church." And I was like, "Yeah, I got some issues. I got I have some concerns with the church in general." And he's like, "Well, so do I." He's like, "Can you imagine having to bring my gospel into the world and deal with imperfect people?" And I got kind of a glimpse into his vision of this. And man, it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, yeah, he's had to use people to bring about the gospel. Like that has to be frustrating. Anyways, I'm trying to keep this brief. It's hard to keep brief.
We'll go to a part 2.
So I fade back out of this vision, and I'm sitting back on the couch with my wife. And Brandy, the pothead, love her to death, she's still on the phone. And she's like, "Hey, are you back with us?" And she knew that I wasn't there. And I don't know how long I was gone. It could have been 2 minutes. It could have been a half an hour. She says, "Are you back?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm back." And I look at my wife, and she's sitting next to me. She's super concerned. And I said, "I wish I could plug a USB drive into my brain and download what I just witnessed." I said, "It was amazing, and I want to record this." And she's looking at me like, "Kelly, you're high as shit right now." Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, "Dear, if you could just witness what I just witnessed." And I couldn't describe it in a way that she understood. She was just like, "No, you're just high." That's all she could see. She's having this bad experience. She thinks that I'm about to die. And then I start talking like this, and she just thinks that I'm crazy.
And right there, we're going to stop, and we're going to go to part 2. Check us out on part 2 of this vision, because this was the dark side of the vision, and now we have an incredible light side of the vision, which is insane and gave Kelly a tremendous desire to not be content anymore and turn around. So we'll see you in part 2 right now.